Brought to you by Penguin.
Killer Instinct by Nicola Williams. Read by Ayesha Antoine. Chapter 1. Tom Mannion scowled. Typical. You could never find a fucking cab when you needed one, even round here on a Thursday afternoon. He was due back in chambers after a long and late lunch. He stood at the foot of the steps outside his club in St. James's, looked first at his watch, and then up and down the street. It was unusually quiet. Idly, he wondered if something had happened with the traffic further up the road to cause it to stop. An accident, maybe? Security alert given the proximity to the palace? He couldn't care less about any of that, unless it was going to make him late. Tonight was a key chambers meeting, and it was going to be big. Just how big? Only he knew. As he looked at his watch again, he saw a dishevelled man about his age sidling up to him. He looked back up the steps to the club. The whole point of joining places like this was so you didn't have to deal with beggars, especially immediately outside the building. The man was getting closer. Even from 6 feet away, Tom could smell him. He wasn't about to go into chambers stinking of piss, especially not today. Tom turned to face him, deliberately aggressive. As he did, the beggar gave him a gap-toothed smile. "What the fuck do you want?" The beggar instinctively took a step back. This isn't what he'd expected. He'd been around here often enough to know a Savile Row type like Tom didn't square off, acting like a thug in a suit. The man was a little bigger than he'd expected too, not tall, but broad, with the beginnings of a paunch. "Sorry, mate. You couldn't spare a couple of quid for a sandwich?" He tentatively held out his hand. Tom thought of the lavish lunch he'd just had. He looked at the man's grubby hand. "No." Instantly, the man's expression changed. He scowled, resentment and anger heavy in his voice. "Come on, you can afford it. I haven't always been a fucking tramp. Fell on hard times is all. I used to work in Hatton Garden back in the day." He paused, leaning towards Tom as if to get a closer look at his wrist. "A watch like that? You must have something for me." Tom balled his hands into fists. "You think I'm one of these posh gits round here who can't handle himself? I ain't got nothing for you, so fuck off." Just then a staff member came out of the large imposing doors behind him. Finally. "Everything okay, Mr. Mannion?" Tom looked at the tramps retreating back as he slunk away. For the first time in a very long while, he thought of his dad. Decades after he'd left, when Tom had finally been bothered to find out, he'd discovered just how the old man had ended up. Dead in a ditch. No loss. In fact, what Tom could use from his death as leverage was the only thing his dad had ever given him. But even before that, he'd left home so long ago, drunkenly lurching into the night, that if he had come up to Tom in the street, he wouldn't have recognised him. "It is now," Tom said to the attendant. He sniffed the sleeve of his jacket. It smelled okay. Then he turned and walked towards the tube. When he got to Green Park Station, he remembered why he no longer took the Underground. It was full of people who had nowhere to go, nowhere to get to urgently, during rush hour too. Tom looked around. Though he hardly used public transport if he could help it, he still knew where to stand on the platform so that he would be directly at the exit to interchange at Victoria to get to Chambers. The meeting wasn't starting until 6 p.m, or whenever the majority of his barristers got there. Yes, his barristers. But he had a 5 p.m. meeting with Giles Townsend, the KC who was head of Chambers, the man who actually thought he ran it, a fact that never ceased to amaze Tom. Tom prided himself on being punctual. He liked to hold high standards across the board when it came to work. That made him someone who was respected and a little feared. He couldn't give a fuck if he was liked. He hid whatever weaknesses he couldn't improve, even as he tried to unearth the weaknesses of others.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?